You ever notice how nobody actually teaches you how money works? Not in school, not at your job, not even from most parents. So you grow up thinking you're doing fine until one day you realize your wallet's leaking faster than you can fill it. And here's the painful truth. It's not the big mistakes that keep you broke. It's the tiny invisible habits you don't even notice. The $5 here, the $10 there, they add up to thousands. I call it the slow leak of money, and it's the reason most people struggle their entire lives without knowing why. So today, I'm going to share 7 money lessons I wish I'd learned years earlier. Lessons that would have saved me thousands of dollars, countless nights of stress, and probably shaved years off my learning curve. Let's start with the one that hit me hardest. Money is less about numbers and more about habits. I used to think managing money meant being some math genius, like you had to be good with spreadsheets or know the stock market inside and out. But that's not true. What really matters are the little habits you repeat every day. Think about it. Brushing your teeth isn't about being a dentist. It's just about not letting things get out of hand. Same with money. I used to ignore small expenses, telling myself, it's just $5 here, $10 there. But $5 every day is over $150 a month. That's almost $2,000 a year. And here's the kicker, if you invest that $2,000 every year in your 20s, by the time you're 40, you could be sitting on tens of thousands of dollars, just from not wasting a daily coffee. When I finally realized that, it hit me like a brick wall. Money doesn't disappear in big chunks, it leaks out in tiny drops. And the habits you set up in your 20s and 30s, they echo for decades. It's not about perfection, it's about awareness. Once you start catching those little leaks, you start to feel like you actually have control. And that control, that's addictive. The second lesson I wish I'd learned earlier is that debt is not just numbers, it's chains. When I was younger, I thought debt was just normal. Like everybody has a credit card balance, everybody has a car payment, everybody owes somebody something. I thought that was just part of being an adult. But here's what I didn't understand. Debt isn't just about money you owe, it's about freedom you don't have. Every time you swipe that card, you're not just spending future money, you're selling future peace of mind. I remember getting my first credit card. I felt like I'd unlocked a cheat code. Suddenly I could buy things without waiting. Concert tickets, gadgets, dinners. I couldn't actually afford it all felt fine because I wasn't paying for it today. I thought, I'll handle it later. But later comes fast, and when it did, I realized those dinners I ate months ago were now haunting me in the form of interest payments. I wasn't just paying for that burger, I was paying double for it. The worst part? It doesn't just drain your wallet, it drains your options. Want to move to a new city? Sorry, rent's harder with a terrible credit score. Want to take a leap into a new career? Sorry, you can't risk leaving your paycheck because those debt payments are waiting every month. Debt teaches you a harsh truth. The things you think you own actually own you. That shiny car, that vacation you charged, they come with invisible strings that tug on your future. If I'd learned earlier to respect debt like it was fire, something useful but dangerous, I would have avoided years of burning myself. Now, here's a third lesson I really wish I'd figured out sooner. Your income doesn't matter as much as what you keep. I used to be obsessed with the idea of making more. I thought the solution to all my problems was earn a higher salary. And sure, earning more helps, but not if you spend it faster than it comes in. I had friends who made double what I did, but they were always broke. Why? Because lifestyle creep got them. Every time they earned more, they upgraded. Bigger apartment, nicer car, fancier nights out. Their expenses chased their income like a shadow. Meanwhile, I realized people with modest incomes who lived smartly often had more actual wealth. Because it's not about how much flows in, it's about how much stays after it flows out. I'll never forget when I got my first real job. I celebrated by buying a brand new phone, some clothes, and eating out more. The extra money was gone before the first paycheck even cleared. Looking back, I laugh. I was earning more, but feeling just as broke as before. The truth is, money is like water. You can pour gallons into a bucket, but if there's a hole at the bottom, it'll always feel empty. Learning to patch the hole by saving, by being mindful, that's how you actually build something. Lesson 4. Investing isn't optional, it's oxygen. This one stings, because I wasted years thinking investing was something rich people did. I thought you needed thousands of dollars just to get started. So I told myself, I'll invest later when I make more. But later is the most expensive word in finance. Every year I waited was a year compound interest didn't get to work for me, and compound interest is basically magic. It's the closest thing to a cheat code for building wealth. Here's how I picture it. Your money is like little workers. If you send them out early, they spend decades building houses for you. If you wait too long, you've got fewer workers, less time, and way smaller results. I remember the first time someone showed me the difference between investing at 25 versus 35, just 10 years. The 25-year-old ends up with double the money, even if they invest the same amount just because they started earlier. Double. From time alone. That blew my mind, and it broke my heart a little too, because I was already behind. If I could go back, I'd tell younger me, don't wait. Start small. Even if it's $10 a week, just start. Because the habit matters more than the amount. And the earlier you begin, the lighter your future self's load will be. So, Lesson 5. Money is emotional, not logical. Nobody tells you this, but your spending has less to do with math and more to do with feelings. Think about the last time you bought something you didn't really need. Maybe it was shoes, or the latest phone, or even just late-night fast food when you weren't that hungry. In that moment, you weren't doing a calculation, you were chasing a feeling. Comfort, status, excitement, even boredom. For me, one of my biggest wake-up calls was realizing how much of my spending was tied to emotions I wasn't even aware of. If I had a rough week at work, I'd treat myself with a night out. If I felt left out, I'd spend money to feel included. If I was stressed, shopping felt like therapy, and it worked for a few hours, until the bill came in and I felt even worse. It's almost like money became this emotional roller coaster. I was either spending to feel good or panicking about what I'd spent. And when you live like that, you're never really in control. Here's the trick I learned. Pause before spending. Literally, just pause. I started giving myself a 24-hour rule for anything that wasn't a basic necessity. If I still wanted it after a day, fine. But 9 times out of 10, the urge passed. That little pause saved me hundreds, probably thousands over the years. It sounds simple, but it taught me a bigger truth. Mastering money isn't just about mastering numbers, it's about mastering yourself. Once you start noticing the emotions behind your spending, you begin to break that invisible cycle. And here's the thing, once you do that, money stops controlling you, and you start controlling money. Lesson 6. Your environment matters more than you think. We like to believe we're independent thinkers, but the reality is we copy the people around us. If your friends are always splurging, going out every weekend, buying the latest gadgets, guess what? You'll probably do the same, even if it doesn't line up with your goals. I learned this the hard way when I was hanging out with a group that loved to spend. Dinners out, trips, parties, it was constant. And every time, I felt pressure to keep up. I didn't want to be the cheap one, so I joined in. I was spending money I didn't have, just to fit in with people who weren't even paying attention. Later, when I started surrounding myself with people who were smarter about money, something crazy happened. I started changing too. Suddenly, conversations were about side hustles, investing, saving tips, opportunities. It wasn't about who had the flashiest outfit, it was about who was making moves. It hit me that money isn't just personal, it's contagious. Being around people who are broke and careless with money makes you more likely to do the same. But being around people who are intentional, disciplined, and forward-thinking rubs off on you. If I could go back, I'd tell myself, pay as much attention to who you spend time with as what you spend money on. Because the right circle can lift you up financially, while the wrong one can drag you down without you even realizing it. And that's not just true for friends, it's true for social media too. Who you follow shapes what you think is normal. If your feed is filled with luxury vacations, designer brands, and cars you can't afford, you'll start to feel behind. But if your feed is filled with people teaching financial freedom, sharing success stories, or building businesses, you'll start to feel inspired instead. Money is influenced by your environment more than you think. Change the environment, and you'll change your financial habits almost without trying. And then there's the last lesson, maybe the most important of all. Money buys freedom, not things. When I was younger, I thought money was for stuff. Nice cars, a bigger apartment, the newest phone. And don't get me wrong, those things can feel great, but the high wears off fast. That new phone that blew my mind on day one, 2 weeks later it was just a phone. But here's what never wore off. The first time I had enough savings to say no to a job offer I didn't want. The first time I realized I could take a week off without panicking about bills. The first time I bought back my time. That's when I realized money isn't really about luxury. It's about options. It's about being able to choose the life you want instead of being stuck with whatever life throws at you. I'll give you an example. One of my friends was miserable at his job. Long hours, no appreciation, toxic boss. But he couldn't quit because he was living paycheck to paycheck. He was stuck. Another friend in the same situation had been saving and investing for years. When her job got unbearable, she simply walked away. No panic, no crisis. Just, I'm done. That's the difference. One had no freedom. The other had complete control. Same job, different outcome, all because of money. If I had learned earlier that the real goal isn't the flashy purchase, but the ability to own your time, I would have made completely different decisions. Because when you shift your mindset to see money as freedom instead of things, everything changes. Suddenly, skipping that impulse buy feels good, because you know you're buying back time instead. Saving doesn't feel like sacrifice anymore, it feels like empowerment. And let me tell you, the freedom of waking up and knowing your bills are covered, your future is secure, and your choices are yours, that feeling beats any shopping spree. Every single time. Building wealth doesn't happen in some big, dramatic moment. It happens in tiny, almost invisible moments that add up. Choosing to cook dinner instead of ordering in. Choosing to save that extra 100 instead of upgrading your phone. Choosing to invest a little now instead of promising yourself you'll do it later. Those small choices seem insignificant in the moment, but they stack. Day after day, year after year, they quietly transform your life. I remember the first time I managed to save a few $100s without immediately spending it. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was a turning point. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't completely powerless. And that feeling, that spark of control, that's what kept me going. That's what eventually grew into real freedom. And that's what I want for you. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about money for money's sake. Money means options. It means not panicking when your car breaks down. It means saying yes to a trip with friends without guilt. It means saying no to a toxic boss because you don't need to beg for a paycheck. It means sleeping peacefully because you know you've built a safety net under you. So here's what I want you to do. Don't just listen to this and nod along. Pick one thing from these 7 lessons and apply it today. Whether it's making a small payment on your debt, setting up a savings transfer, or even just unfollowing those accounts that pressure you to spend, take one small action. Because money is like anything else in life, the hardest part is starting. Once you start, the rest begins to fall into place. If you know someone who could use a little financial clarity right now, send this their way. You never know, you might change their life just by sharing it. So take the first step today. See you in the next one.